Hey, welcome, Real Love Guitars Workshop. Sam here, and we have a really nice, simple thing. A thing of beauty, a thing of simplicity. It is somebody's much loved Squier Bullet Strat. Looking down the headstock there, it says Bullet, and it's a made in China thing with, look, those basic tuners on board, and it has a rosewood neck, medium frets, kind of cream paintwork, polyurethane lacquer, one ply white scratch plate or pickguard, 3 pickups, and we have the guitar set in a floating tremolo position here. This is one of Stephen's much loved numbers, and this guitar is got cracks all over the place. So it's got cracks in the neck pocket, great big things, if you can see that, but yeah, cracks in the neck pocket, all emanating away from the very corner points. And then we've got, blimey, this has got cracks coming up here, this crack comes across the top here, down the back to about here. We've got cracks running all the way down here, and so on and so on. So this is a knackered old guitar, but it's one of those guitars that the reason Stephen's brought it to me is because it's a much loved guitar, and it's a great example of a budget guitar, and not one in very dire condition as well in some ways, but it's a really good example of one that adds up to more than the sum of its parts, if you get what I mean. So there's a lot of discussion about the quality of these guitars in the Squier range. You know, first of all, Squiers versus Fenders, and there's a lot of discussion, and people have a lot of views on that. They're obviously a budget guitar, but you know, this is a bit of a long lead for this occasion. Budget guitars, and then within the Squier range, of course, there's a sort of whole hierarchy or pecking order of it's always the way, pecking order of quality then within the Squier range. So you have a sort of, there was a early 90s no name Squier Strat, which meaning it just had Stratocaster, it didn't have any model designation. But what you've got here is the Bullet, which is the next one up from that, really. So get those things off. Gonna sneeze. So we have a basic Strat for not a lot of money. The Bullet is a narrow-bodied one, so it's about 40mm or 41, something like that. Not the 44 or something, the full scale thing. So first thing I notice is having tuned it, before I do anything with the tremolo. So we've got it tuned, we've got nice sounding Strat. It's fluty in the neck position. So notice it's going straight out of tune. And as I was playing it and bending the strings, I could hear pings here. So a little observation there. Rule number 1 in tuning your nut slots are the biggest determinant in the tuning, stability of tuning on your guitar. Well, sorry, equal first, along with the amount of unreleased slack in your strings. Okay, so in strat terms, got everything you'd expect from a basic strat. So it's actually not a bad tone, and by the time you put that through a nice amp, which this isn't exactly, but you can make it sound really nice. So nothing, I can't really find too much fault with the tone of that for its budget price. Now the tuners, you know, I don't like them personally because they're not very direct. They have a bit of a loose spin on them because they're quite crudely built, but they don't untune and they don't slack the strings off by themselves. What we're hearing, by the way, what's unsettling the tuning on this is two things. First of all, it's the strings catching in the nut, and secondly, there's still unreleased slack in these strings, and I'll give you an example. Also, I'll do it a different way. So quite often what people do is they'll string a budget guitar like this with a Tremolo Set To Float. And in this case, floating means that it's prepared to work downwards, tilting forwards to give you downward flat, you know, to get the note to go flat. And this one's also set so it will go backwards, so it's kinked up in a floating position. So somebody will string up the guitar out the box. If they're lucky, they'll have it in floating position, and then they'll play a chord, and suddenly it's out of tune. That's it, ruined. Can't live with it. So that's usually for one of two reasons. One is the slack in the strings, two is the nut. In this case, if we just tune it back up, let's say we tuned it up, I can achieve the same effect now by stretching these strings again. Could be by bending the strings rather than doing this, but let's say we pull the strings. Oh, beautiful. So it's unworkable again. Clue there, that G was sharp, which you wouldn't expect, but it's sharp because it's catching either side of the nut, so it's a mixture of slack and catching in the nut slots, so we can take care of both of those. Okay, but right now this thing will never stay in tune because of the nut slots, even if you stretched out all of the slack in the strings, which hasn't been done. But we'll do the two things, and this thing will be a remarkably stable guitar, even with tremolo set in that position. It's funny because loads of people, there's a sort of mythology about tremolos, and you hear most beginner guitarists will sort of ask or make sure that the tremolo is locked down flat because their experience of it is that it just too much trouble to make it worth it. It's not worth it. So you'll see people constantly saying, no, I want it locked down flat, can't be bothered, puts it out of tune, can't play with it, can't gig with it. So if you do the setup the Real Love Guitars way, it just so happens that with a common sense approach to it, it'll take care of all of those issues. And this, I say all of them, there aren't that many. Now the thing with this guitar is, I want to do a setup on it. Stephen loves this guitar. It plays, in terms of the feel, pretty much like he wants it to play. There's a bit of height we can take off the first fret. There's probably a little bit of reduction we can do on the final fret, which is playing a bit high for my liking. So that's nearly 2.5. So let's call it 2.25. 2.25 on the low E, and the high E is going to be, just for a reference really, high E is currently about 1.25, so that's not too far off what I like. So there's a little bit to take off. It'll improve the playing action somewhat. In a way, that's not the biggest deal. The biggest deal is getting the nut right and getting the strings, getting the guitar cleaned up, but getting a little bit off the action. We'll leave it set in the floating mode here. I won't go as far as measuring the exact range backwards. If people send me or bring me a guitar where the amount of bend or the floatingness is already set, then I won't kind of mess with it. You can use a particular method. I use the Galeazzo Freddua, in Italian luthier, but I use his method for setting a defined range of backward movement, and I've got it written down here because it's quite a useful thing to use. I've shown it on some other videos, but in this case I'm going to just make sure I use the same gauge of strings on this, which should bring it to the same range of, should equalize, is that the right word? Stabilize to the same range of backward movement. So I'm just going to have a quick check of the. So we got what claims to be a 47 and a, never tell at least 11.5. I kind of doubt that somehow. 10. I'm not even sure I believe that. Yeah, I do believe it actually. It's a 10s. Okay, so we'll go with 10s. Make sure we're back in the same ballpark. But that will mean that the tremolo will sit up in the same place when we string it. Okay, so this is a very typical, and I mean that in the nicest way, a very typical guitar of the sort of bread and butter guitars that I started out doing and like to see. Because actually, this is, in a way, the improvement on one of these is slight but huge at the same time. You can really get them playing nicely. So, as I say, this one, cracked to hell and back. It raises the issue of a lot of people who are quite adamant that the cracking in the lacquer is mostly just cracks in the lacquer, but I have to say, on every level of logic that I've ever looked at this, it doesn't really make sense that's the case. For example, if that were the case, I've always argued that the corner is a bad shape for spreading loads and forces, particularly where things take knocks or are screwed in too tightly or whatever, and you build up force or pressure. The corner angle is the perfect escape point for that, and you can see at every corner angle here, or screw holes, is where you can often find the crack emanates from. Now, if you believe or agree that logic, and you say, oh yeah, okay, but it's only the lacquer that's cracking, well, the question would be, is why then would the lacquer crack as if it were a solid substance with force needing to be shed in the corner? If this was just lacquer, it could shed its stresses anywhere, right? And the lacquer wouldn't build up stresses in a corner point the same way as a piece of wood does. So, I'm sorry. You know, people often say, I've taken the lacquer off this. You know, you hear luthiers and guitar people say, look, I took it back to paint. I'm thinking, well, I don't think you did actually, because to take this, back to wood, take this back to wood is a major big deal, and you then have to respray the whole thing. And I'm sure people don't take budget guitars, you know, 9 out of 10 budget guitars that have, or strats that have these cracks, I'm sure they don't take every one of them back and then to a total complete respray, re-sand, buffing and everything that's involved. It's, you know, 150, 200 quid's worth of work or whatever and materials. It's very unlikely that they're going to do that to prove the point. And what they argue is that once they've stripped the lacquer off and the paint off, what they see is that there are no cracks. Well, I guarantee you I could remove all this paint and you probably wouldn't see the crack in the wood. It could be so fine that you won't see it unless you had the courage to prise the whole lot apart, and then you'd probably see it. So I still don't really buy this. Oh, it's only in the lacquer. You know, if it were the case, you'd find the lacquer just spontaneously cracking here or anywhere on the edge of something. The fact that it's cracking at the point at which the structure would naturally shed its stresses, it just seems too convenient. It's obvious that if the wood underneath cracks because of its structural loading here, and it cracks in the corner point like we'd expect it, then it's also obvious that the lacquer will crack with it. That makes complete sense, but not the other without the one, if you get what I'm saying. So sorry folks, those who believe in this thing, I don't. Anyway, so what I'm going to do with this guitar is I'm going to, these strings are in reasonably good condition. Looking at the frets are in good nick, there's nothing we need to do to those, and I'm going to lower the action a tiny bit with the guitar, the tremolo in this position, and I'm going to set the ideal action. And the thing to do then is to see how it plays. So it's not an awful lot of adjustment really needed, just a little bit. This guitar will benefit from an overall clean because it is grubby, a sign of having been well used. I'm going to aim for 1.5 on this, which is just about where I am with that, and then I'm just going to double check its neighbours and take them down a little bit to match, and then I'll just go across and double check them all. Having said it, the treble strings appear to be about the right sort of height, so I don't think we need to go down any with those. Just have a quick. So we have, I'm going to put my special lenses on for a second, just to get a good good look. Got a bit of a shadow, so it's hard to see at this point. And I'm tired as well. So 1.5, we've got under 1, which is too low, so we'll just hike that up a little bit. I want about 1.4 if we can get it. Well, that's just over. Down, oops, backwards a fraction. The opposite way to the Tune-o-matic. Okay, 1.2-ish, 3-ish, yeah, 1.2, 1, well, way too low. Funny what, yeah, I can see it looking down this side actually. Better way of eyeballing it. So 1 on, just over 1 and just over 1, so they're pretty much the same, all of those. A quick look. Okay. Just about get there without fret leveling. This is 1. I'm just going to tweak this a fraction, see if we can just get it to play. The thing about this, I don't want to add loads of expense if we can make it work without that. So we're on about 1.2 there. So when we looked at this, this was what was happening. We had a little tiny bit of sizzling on those high notes. I mean, Stephen was saying he doesn't kind of get up that end of the thing very often, but even then, you still want it to be able to play those notes. Let's just have a quick, take a note from over here a minute. Okay, we're still in tune with this one. Okay, so that's the only bit that's getting in my way, and the kind of question is, you know, for alright, first of all, there's no that's interesting. There's no relief at all. Sorry, yes, no relief curve on this side at all, and there is about, blimey, 0.25 on this side. So that's quite an interesting thing straight away. So there's a hump there, and a curve there. Okay, that's what's odd about this. But I don't want to. I'm just, for the sake of a note, let's just see what I have to take that up to release that note, and see whether it's livable with or unlivable with. So that's running at 1.5 on the low, sorry, high E, 1.5 on the high E, and that is a bit under 1 here. Let's get this right with my eyeballs. Okay, yep. So that's gone back up. Difficult to tune because it's floating anyway, so the whole thing is tuning at once. Right, we've got the action down from 2.25 on the low E. We've gone down to 1.6. We'll probably go down to 1.5 without a problem. So that will lose I'll lose 0.75 of a millimetre on that, which is a nice little drop. And check this one. Yep. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna save Stephen some money and not going to fret level this because it's for the tiniest need. It literally is one note at the top here, and if I leave this at yeah, it's a lot of money for one tiny little note. It's not like it's choking, it's not like it's locked off, blocked off, or duplicating notes. It's just marginal in terms of you know, you could tidy it up, but like I say, it's another hour and a half's work or something. So I'm going to save the money on that and not do it. What I will do is that, having made the adjustment here, there's a little lower action here, but also we'll get a little slightly lower action just fractionally out of the low E on this side. What I won't really be able to do anything with is the discrepancy in the relief curve, i.e. practically convex versus concave. That's quite an interesting profile. I don't think I've seen it that extreme for a long time. Yeah, that is really odd. So we just have to work with what we've got and not try to make any major corrections. One of the things that it is possible to do, and I'm not going to do it on this one, but just to let you know as a point of order, if it wasn't playing at all right, which this is, and you desperately needed some curvature in here to match the curvature on this side, then what you could do is you could set your truss rod, your banana tool, you could mimic the curve on this side and use that curve on that side. Now what it would do is it would cut out a little bit more of the metal on the frets in the center, and it would give you a little bit more, kind of effectively artificially give you a bit of a small curve in this, but it would do it at the expense of fret metal. Sometimes it's a necessary evil when you have to do it if you can't get something to play, in very rare occasions, but I wouldn't want to do it on this. It's so marginal or minor. So really there's not an awful lot to do with this. I'm going to check the nut slots. I'm going to make sure they're wide enough. That's the important bit. I'm going to clean it all up. I'm going to probably take the bridge apart and clean that up too. Make it just look nice. Polish everything up. Ditch it. Get some new strings on. And yeah, basically keep it simple. Because, you know, it has its limitations. It's much loved, but it's split in lots of places. So yeah, so I kind of, yeah, I'm not going to adjust the relief, because if I take anything out of this curve here, we're going to be literally humpbacked there and it won't play at all. It's at its optimum. And we're going to work with what we got, including those tuners, which aren't fantastic, but what you'll see when we put it back together again, it will hold its tuning absolutely fine. But let's get it cleaned up. Let's take it apart and get it cleaned up so it looks like new, or as new as possible. So no fret leveling, so I can afford to take these strings off, and we'll keep those as a strat length set for sacrificial strings some of the time. I'm just going to let the tremolo settle back, and then we can take them off. But yeah, these are not bad at all as a start point, for especially for modification. If you're a newcomer to the guitar, they're absolutely fine, and you can get these incredibly cheaply. I mean, you'll find people in their sort of local Facebook buy and sell guitar stuff. You know, you'll pick these up for £50, £40 sometimes, locally. You just get bargains, and you know, these and the Affinity Squiers, which are also a really good start point. Affinities in some ways are better, generally better quality than these, but only in so far as the tuners are a bit better. I'm not sure the pickups sound that much better to my ears, but some people I guess would say they are for the money, small difference. But yeah, in terms of the headstock shape, the Squier Affinity tends to be isn't exclusively, but tends to be the bigger CBS. I think it's CBS style headstock, and the bullets tend to be the smaller style, which I prefer personally. Okay, so this is classic strat thing. Always remember to take off the back plate, because you might as well, because you're going to be messing about trying to get the strings out and they won't come out. Now this one's split in a couple of places, so it's an old piece of plastic. These guitars come with very thin alloy, zinc alloy bridge parts, so they're very lightweight in that sense, and they feel it. And yeah, but you do have an option. You can, if you want to, you can upgrade it and put a heavier block in for not a lot of money. You can get a Wilkinson unit or something like that. There's several different kinds, but you get one that fits. This one's actually surprises me. Actually, it's got conductive, or whatever it is, you know, shielding paint, conductive paint, shielding paint, which I'm not sure I've seen before in a bullet. Maybe I have. It's been a long time since I saw one actually. So I'm going to try and remove all of these, hopefully without going into a complete snarl at the other end, but that's, let's say, could be a little bit optimistic here because they're a bit curled up. Okay, well, I say I'm going to leave this one on the bench tomorrow because I've got a mission all day tomorrow. Claire and I are driving up to Salisbury for her medical appointment, but I can get this one done by end of Wednesday, so it's not that much to do. Okay, so a strat set of strings ready for seeing due service somewhere else. So to get these things, this sort of thing cleaned up, I likes to take off, certainly take off the bridge. That's one way of getting that clean. It's a little bit fiddly, but it just gives us a chance of making it look as presentable as possible. So the 6 screws are all set correctly at slightly above the plate, so there's room. You can see it's quite about 2 millimeters. If they were flattened down, then you wouldn't be able to get the tilt on it. Just take this off and give it a good clean, and then I'll lift the plate and get clean under that as well. I'm going to make everything look as new as possible, or as fresh as possible. And taking off the bridge or saddles to clean them, what will happen is we'll end up slightly tweaking the intonation, which means we'll need to just readjust that again. So it also gives you a chance to look at it structurally. So there's a crack there which runs through the hole and down the back. There's another one that runs from the hole into the pocket here. So pretty sure that they're all in the wood, folks, no matter what anyone likes to say. Okay, so this is I don't know if I can get this off with one fingers. I like to lift these just to get underneath them and clean up any muck that's under there if possible. Yeah, there's usually a bit of gunge. I'll give them a good clean, make sure they're attached. It's a nice little handy little tool just to get the knobs started in their movement. This scratch plate is just a little bit buckled, so it's not perfect. That's good, Nick. Everything there's good. I'm gonna, as I say, I'm gonna just take this off so I can just clean underneath it. Never hurts. Otherwise, you never get quite to the edge of the paint where it joins the scratch plate. I won't need to pull it all the way off, so I won't unsolder the ground lead. This is so much simpler than trying to do a variax, I can tell you. Okay, so we have just as an example, you'll see that we've got ceramic bar magnets on the bottom of the pickups, and then sort of standard stuff, mini pots, so budgety pots really. It's kind of what you expect at this price range, but also you've got the shielded paint, and you've got the kind of HSS potential there with the routing, so you've got an option to have a different scratch plate configuration. So what we've got is we've got a crack here, not unusual, that goes from the pocket, which is actually really badly cut out. I don't know how well you can see that. Sorry about this. Still on? Here you are. Yeah, so you can see, look how crudely that's cut out. That's really quite naff. But you've got a crack. You've got two cracks. You've got one here that goes down into the wood here, and then another one from the hole through into the wood. And this little bridge of wood here is very, very weak, and it's quite common on many guitars for that to break off completely. Well, shear, and whether it comes out or not is another matter. But and the same thing happens here on a lot of guitars. Not on this one, but particularly if you've got a 2-point tremolo floating sort of knife edge thing, you know what I mean. Like for example, the Squier standard series has a 2-point, and the loading it puts on the bushes here, it's just in two places really, is usually it can be very extreme, and often can snap off the this little bridge of wood. So it's all a bit kind of crude. It does its job. It's got the conductive shielding paint, but you know, I like to lift it off to have a look. But you can see that given this crack here, and given that crack here, and that crack there, and then this crack on that side which goes right around the back, there's not a lot of this that isn't about to fall apart really. You know, so when somebody, I have to say, when somebody says to you, "Oh no mate, it's the standard, you know, all Strats have got them, just the normal cosmetic lacquer cracks in it," you can see that this is all structural, and it all eventually connects up, and sometimes not in a way that you'd want. Now, have I ever seen a guitar like this fall apart? No. I doubt very much, as I said to Stephen the other day, I doubt very much this would literally fall apart at any point. And to be honest, if it did, you'd have had your good money's worth out of it for sure. You know, and one of my favourite ever guitars was my Sun Mustang in the sparkly pearl white, or whatever colour it was called, but the one I bought deliberately because it had neck pocket cracks, and I wanted to experiment with seeing what their kind of makeup was and how to repair them, and just loved the guitar, absolutely loved it. It was such fun to play, even with its cracks and imperfections, kind of maybe even because of them. So once again I've managed to lose my blade. Oh, there it is. Right. So the blade is handy just to get rid of these little crappy bits of plastic that just annoy me. They don't really get in the way. Sometimes they bunch up when it's typical when you pull off the plastic off the pick guard for the first time, it tends to scrunches up a bunch of it underneath these pots knobs, and then it kind of rustles and crackles, and it's horrible. So I like to, it's my OCD, I like to get those little rinds off and be done with them. Okay, so let's just double check these. Everything here is firmly attached. No, nothing's coming loose. So I'm just going to put this back on. Already it looks cleaner, which it is, of course. Let's put it onto low tack, line it up. So take the bridge apart, give it a good clean up, and then give the neck a clean. The headstock looks really good, clean condition too, so nothing to do there. Clean the chrome out, and then basically restring it and tweak the nut slots with the new strings, because it's such a small adjustment. I don't think we'll need to. We won't be stressing the new strings any. And this will basically end up feeling exactly, almost identical to how it did before, which is always a consideration when somebody tells you that a guitar is the way they like it. You know, aha, that needs an adjustment. You know you can make an improvement, but often that improvement can, in reality, make the guitar feel quite a bit different. You have to just be realistic about how far you want to do that. Okay, so I've got this thing here which is quite, on paper, is a neat little thing. So you put it in here, turn it back, and then around it turn the, whatchamacallit, the nut thing, which from this angle is never easy to get to anyway, so not at the best of times you're not going to get very good grip. I wonder, was there a little device? I think there was, but I'm not sure if it's going to do it. I don't actually think that. No, it doesn't really do anything. Right, what I'd be tempted to do in this case, rather than fight with that, that's useful if you're working with semi-acoustic or something that you really can't get inside. But if you've got something that you can actually get to just as easily as this, then I wouldn't recommend messing about trying to over squeeze something that you can basically take this feather off, check the connection, make sure it's good, then we've got a much better grip on it. We could take this off a minute, so we've got much easier access to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to wind this most of the way off, keep it in the right sort of position. I'm going to shoot some of this thread lock into it. And this is blue stuff, which is sort of I don't know what the word would be, semi-hard to get off, semi-easy. It's not the world's most sticky thread lock, but it's going to help us to keep this thing from moving in the mid-term, short to mid-term. Because the issue, I guess, with any electrics is that wherever there's movement, in the case of something like this, the more movement there is, the sooner it's going to end up broken. So giving that as tight a squeeze as I can, given the constraints of human flesh, not being able to squeeze it too hard, and then just clear up any leftover. Don't mind having a little trademark hint of blue in there, because that tells me it's nice and secure. Okay, so that's going to set and keep that locked in position. And so many times you'll find that when that becomes loose, you'll get a connection broken. The ground or the hot will break off, or the solder joint will snap because of the movement. And if you think about the way that this is constructed, it's almost guaranteed to move, because you've got a jack plug kind of being shoved around in that space, and so it's a lot of forces on that little unit. Okay, so this is the bridge we've got here. It's not too bad. It's pretty clean actually. Let's see if it's worth taking apart, or whether it's cleanable, uppable from where it stands. It's been a bit scratched up, so it's not the prettiest looking thing in the guitar universe, but it still deserves to look tidy. In fact, I will take it off. I'll do it by halves. Okay, so I'm just going to get on and clean this. I won't bore you with it. Once it's done, I'll reattach that, and then I'll leave the guitar. No, I'll string the guitar, but I might not do it tonight. So I'll see you in a little bit when the guitar's restrung, and I'll just do the intonation and show you I'm doing the intonation. Right. Okay, so it's getting a bit late, so I'm going to make this snappy, but here we go. Getting loaded up with the new strings. Oh, no we don't. Quick going over. The board's pretty clean, but I'll give it a quick go. And then a quick oil. Got to do that, got to do that. It's very clean. Looking brand new, this thing. Shiny. That's why it's worth taking the bridge off and doing that little bit of extra work, because it really does make all the difference to how clean it looks. Okay, so we'll just do a little bit of oil. Okay. And then we'll string it, and then I've recreated the intonation pattern pretty much as it was, based on the little scratches on the plate, but we'll obviously double check it with the tuner and a screwdriver in case. So this is a quick setup, but quick because the basic quality of this, the playing apparatus on here was in pretty good playing order. And Stephen was telling me that, in his words, this played kind of out of the box from the outset. There's only a small amount of adjustment I made to it there, as you could see. So yeah, a testament to the basic quality of this thing. And if you get to like it and take care of it, then I suppose if it's a favourite guitar, there's no reason, even with the cracks and some of the issues, there's no reason at all why you wouldn't upgrade the pickups in this to something, because the great thing about pickups, don't forget, is you can always take them out and put them into some other expensive piece of hardware or chassis when you get one. So it's never a bad move to invest in good pickups, because you don't, like I say, you don't ever have to leave them behind. Now I think I've just gone and done something back to front. I have indeed. I've put the white instead of the blue. So let's just redo this and get it through the hole. Come on. I can't believe this. Thank you. Maybe thank you. Am I thanking you, or am I just cursing you? Thank you. Let's shove this. I went to the whites first when it should have been the blues. Gone to the blues. Oh, God, this is so fiddly to get a string through a hole and out the other side. Yeah, so always consider if the guitar itself you like the feel of it, you like the action on it, then like this, I always say consider treating yourself to the best pair of pickups you've ever heard of for a Strat, because if the basic playing action and feel is good, then there's absolutely no way, no reason why this wouldn't sound like a very, very good guitar. Now yes, it's got small pots in, and it's got some average Chinese wiring, but I would challenge most people to be able to tell you reliably in a blind test the difference between some Chinese wiring and some expensive quote unquote boutique wiring. You know, most people, not that many people, could tell the difference. It's, you know, the real big difference would be the pickups. Anyway, so I'm just going to get this loaded up, and then I'm just going to check each of the slots at this end for freedom of movement. Really, that's what we're looking for. And it's going to involve doing it with these new strings, which I prefer. Ideally I would not want to do, but it shouldn't take much adjustment. It's really probably only a matter of a bit of widening with a piece of sandpaper, if anything. But I could feel from before these things definitely need a bit of widening, because they were grabbing the strings quite significantly, which was causing the tuning issues. So we'll take care of that any minute now. This is a nice guitar. I would be happy to pick this up in the house and play any day. And even all the better because of its kind of slight beat-upness too. It's a funny one, because the guy who came on YouTube earlier on to tell me that I don't remember what he said, boring him to death talking or something. It's quite difficult, because rule number one is I'm not going to edit these videos, because there's nothing in it to spend my time editing. I don't benefit from it at all, so there's no way I'm going to do it. There's no financial business payoff. Wrong side of the clippers. There's no payoff, so there's no reason to do it. And to be honest, the alternative then is to say nothing while I'm doing it, which is not my way of doing things either. Partly because it keeps me sort of on my toes if I'm talking aloud or thinking of what's going on as I'm going through it. So, okay, this is looking nice, this cream beauty. Okay, get this sorted out and then park it. Got some strings on the way for Stephen's Taylor Baby behind me, which I've shimmed the neck and changed the action on. It's actually a lot simpler than I envisaged. Some of the other Taylor guitars, or other manufacturers, but certainly other Taylor guitars, are a lot more complex because they involve two shims. The Baby is kind of conveniently a simple affair, really. And this actually didn't have any shim in it at all when I took the neck off, so it was just a matter of putting in a shim of some sort. And I opted for a strip of brass because it would have been nigh on impossible to create a 0.3 of a millimetre high wedge, given the tools I've got, which are definitely not capable of that sort of precision. Okay, so strings are on. I'm just giving them an initial tug to make sure they're stretched. And then the issue with this now is I want to, I've got nothing, but really ideally you want to tune up with something that's already in tune, because it's going to be floating, so it's never going to stay in the correct tune. So the back hasn't come up yet. I'm probably better off taking this in the house and doing it, tuning it up progressively to a already strung guitar. I think I might have one over there. It's going to be difficult to get to though. Anyway, the point about that is to just keep doing it until the tremolo plate comes up to its previous position. So that's a hair, not a scratch, but it's stuck there, which is really annoying. Right, okay, so anyway, look, I'm going to put a hold on it there because that's pretty much it for this guitar. There's not a lot to it. What I'm going to do now is just tune it up according to a guitar that's already strung. The reason I'm doing that rather than a single note is because the relative pull of the strings means that we have to keep tuning up to another guitar and then go back because everything else will be out of tune, go again note by note, and then the first note will be out of tune until it reaches the equilibrium on the springs, which will leave the tremolo sort of canted up a little bit. But it's going to be difficult to do that without reference to another guitar, so I'll take that in and do it there. And then after that, really all I'm going to do is set the intonation, or check the intonation, and we're done. There we go. Hi folks, just the final tweak of this bullet strat here that I'm just going to get out of its box. I can undo the things. This is Stevens basic bullet strat. I say basic because it's a Squier and it's definitely a budget guitar, but it has great qualities to it. And just what I'm really looking to do on this right now is to that's what I need to do. Right, I'm going to use this guitar to do it with. What I wanted to do was I needed a guitar with already tuned up, in order to take the tuning off that. Now, I would use this one, except it's tuned down a tone because I was enjoying playing a bunch of Beatles songs tuned down. So, tune it up. That'll do. So, the purpose of this, I'm going to hang this one in, just somehow, whatever. Don't need that. And put it on a peg, and then use this one as my reference tuner to bring up the tuning on this one. The reason I'm doing this is because a guitar with a floating tremolo, which this has, will change all the time as you tune it. What we'd expect as we tune it to see this bridge kicking up. Now, we'd also expect that when we get to this point, the low E now would be out of tune. Yep. So we just keep tuning until we reach equilibrium. And for that to happen, the bridge will cant upwards. Up. Yes, Morris. It gets smaller and smaller. Yes, Morris. And we're getting there with this. But what I'm noticing as well is the bridge is not quite as high up as it was before. Well, which means it's going to need just a tiny bit of slacking off on the backing, which I've already put the cover back on, so I'll need to do a tweak. Actually, it's nearly on the right range. This is a 1.5, one tone and half tone. Yes, sir. I don't know if you've noticed how, first of all, straight away, for me it's been a day or so, but for you it might have been a matter of an hour or so. Do you remember how completely unstable the tremolo was, or the tuning was at the beginning with the tremolo? Notice now, apart from that stretch the strings. Yes, 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 you beautiful boy. Don't put your nose on the camera. Apart from a bit of more string stretch, which I'm doing now, notice how stable the tuning is, even now just using the tremolo. Now, because it's not canted up quite as far as it was before, you have tiny adjustments you might make to the action, although it's nice and low. Do you want to go down on your little stool again, mister? Because you're sort of in the way. No? No. Anyway, the point is that with the nut slots now not catching, and a lot of, or most of, if not all of the stretch, most of the stretch being pulled out of the strings repeatedly, increasingly, what you get is a solid or dependable tremolo. Once we've got the nut slots exactly right and any residual stretch out of the strings, this thing will be usable with a tremolo without any problems at all. Let's just stretch. That is a little tiny, what the hell is that? That's the smallest creature I've ever seen in my life. That's a little thing less than 1/10 of a millimetre big. I'd like to blame Morris for that. Yeah, that's a little bit low on the high E, so let me get my watch. sits out my windy, windy things and my measuring thing. And I wish Morris would take a little walk. So assuming that my tremolo bridge is going to stay there, yeah, we're barely on a millimetre there, so we're just going to go a smidgen higher. Now I remember that one of the things Stephen was saying that his pet hate was getting these things in the palm, so the sticky uppy things. So oh yeah, this is alright. Yeah, this is the right. That slight squeeze on the high E there is due to the fact that, remember, this neck has no relief on this side, while it has a curvature on this side, which is completely bizarre. Anyway, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just set it up with that in mind. There's nothing we can really do about the other side that doesn't quite match up. Just an inherent quality of that neck, I'm afraid, but we'll make it play. And then the other thing I was going to look out for and see if I could get hold of was some short, I might have some short grub screws, so that we can replace these and have a guitar that doesn't have any sticking up into the palm. So again, keeping on pulling out any slack. Things. Yeah, that's the limitation on this guitar, unfortunately, is that no, I'll keep stretching them. If I could get young Morris out of the way, the limitation is the basic limitation on this neck, on this guitar, is the uneven neck relief, and there's nothing we can do about that. That's just part of parcel of what comes with this neck. No amount of truss rod adjustment is going to give you, it's going to correct that, because it's uneven. It's doing one thing on one side and another thing on the other side. It's part of the characteristic of this neck. Stiffness in one side. But as a result, it just means we don't get quite the same action on both sides. I'm hearing the tiniest pinging in that E slot, which I can do without. So with just catching, for that purpose I'm going to take a blade and a little tiny bit of sandy paper, and we're just going to widen that slot enough. Really, even the blade part is probably a bit too much for it, but it probably works best with just the paper on its own, if I can get it in there. It's just I don't want to deepen it any really, I just want to widen it just to free up that slight creak I heard, which is just going to hold it back, especially with a tremolo. Could result in it just catching and being fractionally. Yeah, I can hit, well, I think it's the might be the B as well. I'm just going to do both of those. This is a fine tuning to ensure that whatever's going on, the strings move freely through the slot, because even that tiniest amount of stickiness can and usually does just upset the tuning, and you'd be amazed how little it has to catch to create an inequality or an unevenness of tension either side of the nut. And basically what it means is that the still doing it. It means that the string will be a little tighter on the, let's say, on the nut side than on the neck side. And what happens is when you pull the string, it'll just pull that tightness across the gap and even equalize it basically. But the way it equalizes it, of course, is by changing the tuning, or as it equalizes, it changes the tuning, the pitch just slightly. Somebody's still pinging. It's the E. So you can see I'm just feeling my way to make sure that if I have to, I'm just going to kind of just widen this just enough to stop that. I don't want to go down in the slot, I just want to stop that pinging. Still there. Nearly gone. Now, what I'm hearing, this is annoying, it's not the slots that are doing it, it's the bloody string trees. So it's quite often the case, and what I do in this situation is I put a little bit of grease on the underside of it. There are, on a budget guitar, these little string trees are, sorry if you have to look round Morris for this, but the little string trees are just a pain because they're butterfly shaped and they do the job of holding the string down, but the problem with them is that they create in their turn a sort of flat surface of metal, which actually is quite easy to get caught on. So you can hear it. It's uneven, and it's of course it's under pressure because it has to be for it to work, but as a result you get a lot of creaking going on that you really don't want. So to try and offset that, it's just a final touch really, is I'm going to put a little bit of grease on each string at that point just to help it through that, or kind of lubricate it a little bit. A bit non-standard, but it's something I've found tends to work. But it can be one of those things that fools you into thinking you've got creaking going on at the nut, which we haven't now. It's purely in the string trees, and you can keep on grinding the nut down in thinking there's a problem, and when in fact there isn't. So just be cautious. Always suspect the butterfly string trees. So you can see we're kind of coming to the end of the stretching process. And it's staying stable. Yeah, look at that. There we go. So that's nice, I like it. Now with the action set down there, I'm just going to have a quick look at what the first fret action is on here. Again, I've forgotten if I even made an adjustment to this before with the other strings. Okay, so we've got it very low on these two. It's a little bit higher on this E, bottom E, but for my liking, and that's a 10s, so we're looking at a 46. I'll get the 48 out of here. I'm just going to do a tiny tweak on this one because it's a little bit higher than I would like. I'll get 48. And we're on, where did I just put that? Thank you. Yeah, we're working on the, let's do it on point. Well, I had it, the others are very low, so let's do it on 0.3. That's good. That's a bit high. So I'm just going to do a tiny adjustment on here, on the 48. Alright, so we're pretty much done at that point. Just get this down a little bit further. Sorry, Morris. Yeah, and then we're oh yeah, sorry, we're not quite done, because after this we've just got to check the intonation. Now this is, when you're doing this on a strat, you can often find that, I'm happy with that, you often find that you can run into hitting the rosewood there. It's quite difficult to get a decent angle on the files without hitting this little rosewood shelf, but it's a sort of a minor part of the deal. As far as I'm concerned, I'd rather take a little nick out of that and get the action right than to preserve the action, sorry, preserve the fingerboard and not get the right first fret action. Okay, so I'm just going to plug this in. Very bright bridge sound on this guitar. Now I need to put the strap on to do this, and I'm going to get myself a V suitable adjuster, and I need my phone, which is way down here, velcroed in its place. Set it to airplane mode. Morris, can I have the strap, sir? Thank you. I don't know why he thinks this is the right place to sit today, but I'm not going to get on his case. There's a bit of a discussion going on my Real Love Guitars Facebook page about cracks in neck pockets, and Brian asked me what I would recommend doing with cracks in the body like this. And I think the answer mainly would be nothing. In a way, you could treat it like any crack in anything like glass or any substance, where ideally you'd want to come on, yes, use my microphone. Ideally you'd want to arrest the movement of the crack, stop it, and you could do that by drilling a little hole and putting a dowel in to stop the movement of the crack along that surface. And then obviously fill in any, if you can, you prise apart the thing and fill in anything with glue and then clamp it back together again. But the point is, when it comes to repairing lacquer like this, you're never going to get it to work precisely. There's a ping somewhere in this system. We'll find it. Yeah, so the question is, even if you wanted to go to that length to repair cracks, the amount of time and effort you're going to have to spend to rebuild this lacquer, you might as well be stripping the whole guitar and respraying it or finding another body altogether. So on a budget guitar, honestly, the recommendation is play it. Just play it. I mean, obviously, if you're buying and selling, I would recommend avoid the cracks wherever possible. Because in my view, they usually come from things either being over tightened, over stressed, or hit. Right, and that's just my personal take on it. You might not agree, but definitely a ping in this system. I'm going to get it out if it kills me. Anyway, yeah. So, and a budget guitar, get on and play it. If you're interested in having some fun with it, take it apart. You know, pull apart the cracks, shove glue into it, and then have a look at seeing what you can do to refinish that crack. But you know, realistically, to refinish that crack, you've got a fairly smooth join, but with a little black line that looks ugly. If you refinish that, even if you've stabilised the wood underneath, then you've got to basically dig a little trench out, fill it with an identical paint, and then try and lacquer over it or cover it over with glue or whatever it is you're going to use to sort of reach a smooth finish. But you know, and then you start sanding around the area, and then before you know it, you've kind of sanded all of this, and you need to respray all of this or paint it with rub-on poly or whatever you're going to do. It's not easy, and you're never going to get the professional finish out of it that you want. So if it's a budget guitar, repair it for fun and for interest only. Don't repair it with the hope of ever making it look good again. I think the B and the A are my suspects. I'm going to write it down, only because they're the ones slightly out of tune after I B and the A, after I bashed it around a bit, in which case I'll just get some sandpaper in there. Okay, so for the purpose of intonating, I'm going to tune up on the harmonic on the 12th fret. I'm trusting the tuner, not the guitar behind me. And then we're just looking at the difference between the fretted 12th and the pinged 12th. And here you can see it's just fractionally sharp, which means the string's a tad too short. So we're just going to put a couple of turns into this, and I'm going to go a couple of turns into all the others in line on this bottom three. Whoop, don't worry about the other ones for now, just worry about each individual one. Again, pretty much on the mark, but just a fraction back. So I'm turning clockwise just to drag the saddle a teeny weeny bit back, and I'm gonna, obviously it tightens it up, so we go sharp. Still a little bit sharp, so I'm going to pull it back a little bit more. So basically I'm lengthening the string see what it does. Get rid of it's on. Okay. That's exactly right. Fraction too long, so I'll push that one forward a little bit to counterclockwise. That's my spread of these things. So I'm just going to now readjust based on a sort of visual appraisal where I think these other ones should go, and it's just a guess. Start with the E, or I'll start with the G. Don't worry about the relative tuning a moment. Fractionally sharp. Again, this it means it needs to pull back a little bit. The thing about this intonation thing is it's so inaccurate in some ways because it entirely depends on variations in how you fret the note each time. So there's nobody does it the same twice for a start, and everybody does it differently as well. So it's kind of hard to be ultra precise about it. That's on. But what you'll usually find is there's a relationship, there's a pattern, and you get two sets of three, where the position of the saddles, that's on, form a familiar pattern on a normal guitar like this with three wound and 3 plain strings. Dead on, like that. So B and A, I'm wondering if they're still sticking. Sharp, pull it back a tiny bit. That B went ping somewhere in the system. Keep bending them. Tell when the string isn't moving totally smoothly, there's an imperceptible delay in tuning. So you tune it up, bash it, bash it around a bit. see who's wildly out. So E goes sharp, which tells me it's a little stickiness there. So E is sharp after playing. B is flat, slightly, not much. G is slightly sharp. D is slightly flat. A is on. A is on the mark. And E is okay. Okay, so we've got a little bit of sharp, flat, sharp, flat. There's a ping there. Damn it. Now I'm just trying to find out if it's coming from the trees now, but I don't think it is. I'm still stretching. It takes longer than you think to get it all out of the system, especially when you're using a tremolo, which is highly sensitive to stretching. I'm going to give them all a slightly tiny treatment with the sandpaper as well. Right, intonation I'm happy with. Sorry, I'm going to just concentrate on this is too long a cable for this job. I need to get a smaller, shorter one off the rail up there and just press it into service, because this is great for gigs and rehearsals, but it's no good for intonation and stuff like that. So let's get this out the way for a minute. Haven't been down there for ages. And as for you, Morris, just do a shift around while I just do the sandpapery bit. And it's humid in here, damn it. Thanks to our beautiful rainy British weather. And I've got to go into town shortly, but I'm just going to do a little bit of, tiny bit of widening with sandpaper, and really just concentrating on widening more than deepening. That's the important bit. All of these could benefit from that tiny bit of widening. They're pretty tight slots when you look at them visually. They're you know, in a way they're always tighter than they need to be. As simple as that. Mainly because this idea of a tall slot shape just isn't ideal. It's not required, nor is it ideal. So much better to kind of widen it deliberately towards the top to free up the string a bit. You know, you'd have to go a long way with this before you outsized the slot so it really didn't work for the string, or you know, you end up with the string rattling around. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Okay, we have it. I'm happy with that. It's all good. And I'm going to do one tiny last thing before I take this off. I'm just going to put a smidgen of the old that stuff. If I can remember where it finally eventually went. I had a bit there kicking around. Yes. a little bit more in here now. I know I originally put some in, but it's time's moved on and we've done some cleaning with the various sandpaper attacks, so a little bit more of this graphite. I will say, one of the things, I've said it loads of times, but only ever use the graphite as a sort of very last stage. You know, if you're getting pings anywhere in the nut tuning process, or even in the tremolo use, if you're getting pings, then you've got to do the work with the sandpaper to get rid of them. Don't trust to, or don't try to trust to a lubricant of any kind really to cure it, because it won't ultimately cure it, and all that will happen is that you'll temporarily get rid of it until such times as the lubricant wears out. Yeah, until the lubricant wears out, and then you're back to the sticking slot. So just put the time in and get the slots right first, and then add the lubricant as your sort of last little bit that really makes the thing stay perfect for that, you know, as good as it can be. Okay, so that's this one done and dusted. I'm just going to I would hang it up there, but I can't, so I'm just going to stand it here for a second while I get the case up on the deck. And that one's ready to go home to its master. Sorry, you aren't going to see much of this, because anyway, you don't need to see me putting the case away. It's done.